I mean, this should go without saying, but I just don't want anybody to get mad. There are spoilers regarding the fate of a certain character, so if you don't want spoilers, come back after you watch the episode. So ironically, this is one of the better episodes of the show, and Cassian is barely in it. Now, that is not at all a criticism of how they're writing Cassian. I'm not saying that him barely being in this episode is what made it good. I'm not saying that if there had been more of him, it would have brought it down. It's just an observation. Well, the last episode ended with a cliffhanger, so appropriately, this episode starts with Cassian literally hanging from a cliff. Now, I don't know if that was an intentional joke, but I thought that was kind of clever, whether or not it was. Now, what made this episode so strong for me were two things. One, it is one of the most human and emotional episodes of the show, and there's also a really good space battle. So most of this episode focuses on the death of Cassian's mother, and the way they wrote the little droid she lives with was so well done. Even though he's a droid, and a droid that doesn't even have a face, he provides one of the most heartfelt performances in this episode. He even goes through the first stage of grief, which is denial, by refusing to leave with his new caretaker, believing that she'll come back if he just stays put. Most of the droids we meet in Star Wars are just their comic relief, so it's refreshing to see a droid that gives an emotional performance. Now, I do think that opening the episode with her death was kind of quick. I know they kind of talked about it in the other episodes, they kind of hinted at that's where it was going to go, but maybe if we had spent, I don't know, a couple of scenes with her and some had been maybe 10 minutes longer just to, prepare us a little bit better instead of just kind of opening with that, probably could improve this episode a little better. That's how maybe, I don't know. But also, one of the best scenes in this episode was the scene where the Empire is pulling Luthen's ship with the tractor beam. And yeah, we've seen that before. We've seen that in New Hope, where they're pulling the Falcon in with the tractor beam. They do that all the time in Star Wars. But the tension in this scene is really well drawn out. And it led to an exciting space battle. Because I was wondering if Luthen was going to escape or be captured. Because as they're doing that, it's like, we need to send them fake coordinates. Okay, I'm downloading the coordinates as he's being pulled in. And it's like, run the coordinates. Like, man, they draw this out so well. I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, okay, is he going to escape? Or are they going to capture him? This could go either way. I didn't really know where the scene was going to go. I was excited to find out. And the space battle that ensues feels straight out of the original trilogy. And in the final scene of this episode, which actually does have Cassian in it, it ends on an emotional note, because it's there that he finally learns about the death of his mother. And that final shot of him looking out on the horizon of the beach is brilliant foreshadowing, since in Rogue One, that's also the last thing he sees before he dies. He's hugging Jen Erso on the beach while they look and see the Death Star blowing up their planet. This episode provided a lot of emotion, the right amount of excitement, and though the show's title character was barely featured in this episode, the writing was emotional enough to keep me invested in the characters it did focus on. So, let me know what you thought about this week's episode of Andor.